The stars outside the window were cold and distant. Vila stood with her hands behind her back, watching them in silence. She had seen 1,000 star systems in her 40 years of service. None of them made her feel anything. That was the way of her people. They did not feel. They did not laugh or cry or love. They had removed those weaknesses long ago, back when their ancestors nearly destroyed themselves in wars fueled by rage and jealousy. Now they were calm. Now they were perfect. Now they were empty, though Vila would never use that word. The door behind her opened with a soft hiss. Commander Thorn walked in, his tall gray body moving with mechanical precision. His eyes, like all eyes, were pale silver with no warmth in them. "Officer Vila," he said, "you have received your new assignment." "I have," she replied. Her voice was flat. "I am to supervise a human." "A human liaison," Thorn corrected. "Part of the new alliance between our people and Earth. The High Council believes this partnership will benefit both species." Vila said nothing. She did not agree, but disagreement was also an emotion, so she kept it buried deep. "His name is," Thorn continued. "He is an engineer. He will arrive within the hour. You will watch him. You will report any problems. You will make sure he does not interfere with our operations." "Understood." Thorn paused at the door. "The humans are different. They feel everything. They are loud and messy and unpredictable. Do not let his behavior affect you." "Nothing affects me, Commander." Thorn nodded once and left. Vila turned back to the stars. Humans. She had read about them in the data files. A young species from a small blue planet. They lived short lives, barely 100 years if they were lucky. They made decisions based on feelings rather than logic. They started wars over love and ended them over guilt. They were, by all standards, primitive. And now one of them was coming to her ship. She went to the docking bay to meet him. The shuttle from Earth arrived exactly on time. The doors opened and stepped out. He was smaller than she expected. Most humans were shorter than. He had black hair, dark eyes, and tan skin. He wore a simple gray uniform with the Earth Alliance symbol on his chest. He carried a single bag over his shoulder. When he saw Vila waiting for him, he smiled. That smile caught her off guard. It was warm and open and completely genuine. No had smiled in 3,000 years. "Hello," he said. His voice was calm and friendly. "You must be Officer Vila. I am. Thank you for meeting me." She stared at him for a moment. "Follow me," she said. "I will show you to your quarters." They walked through the long silver hallways of the ship was massive, home to over 2,000 crew members. Everything was clean and quiet and orderly. Looked around with curiosity in his eyes, but he did not ask questions. He simply observed. "Your quarters are in Section 7, Vila said. "You will have access to the common areas, the engineering bay, and the observation deck. You are not permitted in the command center or the weapons systems without approval." "That seems fair," said. She glanced at him. Most species complained about restrictions. Humans were known for being stubborn and proud, but this man just accepted the rules without argument. "You are not upset?" she asked. "Why would I be upset? I am a guest on your ship. It makes sense that there are places I cannot go." He smiled again. "I am just grateful to be here. This is an amazing opportunity." Vila did not understand him. She had expected arrogance or nervousness or resentment. Instead, she found only calm acceptance. It confused her, and confusion was uncomfortable. They reached his quarters. The room was small but functional. A bed, a desk, a bathroom, a window showing the endless black of space. "This is perfect," said. He set his bag on the bed and looked around. "Thank you, Officer Vila." "You do not need to thank me. I am simply doing my duty." "I know," he said, "but I want to thank you anyway. Gratitude costs nothing, and it makes the world a little brighter." She did not know how to respond to that, so she simply nodded and turned to leave. "Officer Vila." She stopped at the door. I know your people think humans are emotional and irrational, said. His voice was gentle, not defensive. And maybe we are, but I promise I will not cause you any trouble. I am here to learn and to help build a bridge between our species. That is all. Vila looked at him for a long moment. His eyes were sincere. There was no deception in them, no hidden agenda. He meant exactly what he said. We will see, she replied and left. That night, she wrote her first report to Commander Thorne. She described the human as manageable but unremarkable. She noted that he seemed calm and cooperative. She recommended continued observation but saw no immediate threat. But after she sent the report, she sat alone in her quarters and thought about him. She thought about his smile, so strange and warm. She thought about his gratitude, given freely for something so small. She thought about the way he looked at the ship with wonder instead of fear. There was something about that she could not define, something that made her feel unsettled, not in a bad way, just in a way she had never felt before. She ran a medical scan on herself. Her heart rate was slightly elevated. Her brain activity showed minor irregularities, but there was no illness, no malfunction. She told herself it was nothing. The human was strange, and strange things naturally caused a reaction. It would pass. She turned off the lights and lay down in her bed. Outside her window, the stars burned cold and eternal. She had looked at them 1,000,000 times and felt nothing. But tonight, for reasons she could not explain, she wondered what they looked like from Earth. She wondered if missed his home. She wondered what it felt like to miss something. She closed her eyes and pushed the thoughts away. Feeling was weakness. Feeling was danger. She did not feel. But somewhere deep inside her, in a place she did not know existed, something small and quiet had begun to wake up. And no matter how hard she tried to ignore it, she could not make it go back to sleep. The human had been on her ship for only 1 day. And already, everything was beginning to change. 3 weeks passed on the ship continued its patrol through the outer regions of the Alliance territory, moving silently through the darkness between stars. The crew performed their duties with perfect efficiency. Everything was normal. Everything was the same as it had always been. Except for Vila. She told herself nothing had changed. She still woke at the same time each morning. She still completed her work with precision. She still spoke in the same flat voice and kept her face empty of expression. But inside, something was different. Something was shifting. And no matter how hard she tried to ignore it, she could not stop herself from watching the human. Had settled into the ship quickly. He worked in the engineering bay, helping to maintain the power systems and repair minor damage. He was good at his job. The other engineers all did not speak to him much at first. They saw him as an outsider, a primitive creature who did not belong. But slowly, that began to change. Vila noticed it during her observation rounds. She would stand in the doorway of the engineering bay and watch him work. He always greeted the other engineers by name. He asked about their work and listened carefully to their answers. When someone made a mistake, he did not criticize them. He simply helped them fix it and showed them how to avoid the same problem next time. One day she saw him working with a young technician named Sara. Sara was nervous and clumsy, and she often made errors that frustrated the senior engineers, but treated her with patience. He explained things slowly and clearly. When she finally completed a repair correctly, he smiled and said, "Well done. I knew you could do it." Sara's face remained blank. Faces always remained blank, but Vila noticed that she stood a little after that. She worked a little harder. She made fewer mistakes. It was such a small thing, a few kind words, a simple smile, yet it had changed something in that young technician. Vila did not understand how that was possible. She began to notice other things about. He thanked the maintenance drones when they cleaned the hallways, even though drones had no feelings and could not hear him. He hummed strange melodies while he worked, old songs from Earth. He explained when someone asked. He ate alone in the dining hall, but he always smiled at anyone who passed by. The crew did not know what to do with him. Some avoided him. Some watched him with curiosity. A few, very slowly, began to nod at him in greeting. It was not much, but on a ship where no one had greeted anyone in centuries, it was remarkable. Vila wrote all of this in her reports to Commander Thorne. She described the humans' behavior in careful detail. Thorne read the reports and said nothing. He did not seem concerned. The human was strange, but he was not dangerous. That was all that mattered. But Vila could not stop thinking about him. One evening, she was in the engineering bay reviewing system diagnostics when an alarm went off. A power coupling in Section 12 had failed. It was not a major problem, but it needed to be fixed quickly before it caused larger damage. The senior engineers were off duty. Only Sara was in the bay, and she immediately began to panic. Her hands shook as she tried to access the repair protocols. Her breathing grew fast and shallow. Vila could see the fear in her eyes, even though her face stayed blank. Vila stood frozen. She knew the protocols. She knew exactly what needed to be done, but protocols did not include instructions for handling panic. She had never seen someone panic before. They did not panic. They simply acted. But Sora was not acting. She was falling apart. Then appeared. He had heard the alarm from his quarters and came running. He took one look at Sara and understood immediately. "Sara," he said calmly, "look at me." She looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. "You know how to fix this," he said. "You have done repairs like this before. I have seen you do them. You are smart and capable. This is just another repair, nothing more." "I cannot," she whispered. "I cannot think. My mind is empty." "Then do not think," said. "Just follow my voice. I will guide you through it, one step at a time. Can you do that?" Sora hesitated, then she nodded. Talked her through the repair slowly and steadily. He did not shout or rush her. He did not criticize or judge. He simply guided her, step by step, until the power coupling was fixed and the alarm went silent. When it was done, Sara stood very still for a long moment. Then she said quietly, "Thank you." Smiled, "You did all the work. I just reminded you that you could." After Sara left, Vila approached him. She did not know what she wanted to say. She just felt like she needed to say something. "How did you do that?" she asked. Looked at her with gentle eyes. "Do what?" "Make her calm. She was failing. She could not function, and you just talked to her and she was better." Was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "She was not failing. She was scared. Those are different things. Fear makes it hard to think, hard to act, but fear is not weakness. It is just a feeling, and feelings can be managed if someone helps you through them." Vila stared at him. "We do not have feelings. We removed them." "Did you?" asked softly. "Or did you just learn to hide them so deep that you forgot they were there?" The question hit her like a physical blow. She did not answer. She turned and walked away, her heart beating strangely in her chest. That night, alone in her quarters, she sat in the darkness and tried to make sense of what she felt. There was a tightness in her chest that would not go away. There was a warmth when she thought about his voice, his patience, his smile. There was something else, something deeper, something she had no name for. She ran another medical scan. Again, nothing was wrong. She told herself it was meaningless, a random fluctuation in her biology, a temporary error that would correct itself. But when she closed her eyes, she saw standing in the engineering bay, calm and steady and kind. She heard him telling Sara that she was capable, that fear was not weakness, that feelings could be managed. And she wondered, for the first time in her life, if everything she had been taught was a lie. They did not feel. That was the truth she had lived by for 40 years. But if that was true, then why did her chest ache every time she thought about the human? Why did her heart beat faster when he smiled? Why did she want to hear his voice again, even though she had no logical reason to seek him out? She did not have answers. She only had questions. and the questions terrified her more than anything she had ever faced in battle. The observation deck was the quietest place on the. It was a large room at the top of the ship, with walls made entirely of transparent material. From there, you could see the universe stretching out in every direction. Billions of stars, distant galaxies, clouds of colored gas where new stars were being born. Most of the crew never visited. They did not care about beauty. They did not find peace in looking at the stars. The observation deck was just another room to them, no different from a storage closet. But Vila had started coming here late at night when she could not sleep. She told herself it was because the room was empty and quiet. She told herself she came here to think, to clear her mind, to review tactical scenarios in her head. But deep down, she knew the truth. She came here because something inside her wanted to look at the stars. Something inside her found them beautiful, and she did not know what to do with that feeling. One night she was standing alone at the window when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned and saw walking in. He stopped when he saw her. "I am sorry," he said. "I did not mean to disturb you. I can leave." "No," she said, and the word came out before she could stop it. "You may stay." He nodded and walked over to stand beside her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They just looked out at the stars together. "It is beautiful," said finally. His voice was soft, almost reverent. "I never get tired of looking at space. Every time I see it, I feel small, but also connected, like I am part of something much bigger than myself." Vila did not respond. She did not know how to talk about feelings. "What does your look like?" asked. "I have seen pictures, but pictures never capture the truth of a place." The question surprised her. No one had ever asked her about her, did not talk about such things. Places were just places. They held no special meaning. "It is a planet," she said. "Gray and cold, efficient. There is nothing remarkable about it." "Do you miss it?" "Do not miss things. We do not form attachments to places or people." Was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That sounds very lonely." Lonely, the word echoed in her mind. She had never thought of her life as lonely. She had never thought of it as anything. It simply was. "What about Earth?" she asked. The question came out before she could stop it. "What is your like?" Smiled, and his eyes grew distant, like he was seeing something far away. "Earth is everything. It is loud and messy and chaotic. There are mountains that touch the clouds and oceans so deep that we still have not explored all of them. There are deserts made of sand and forests made of trees so old that they were alive before humans existed." He paused, and his voice grew softer. "But the things I miss most are the small things. The sound of rain falling on a roof late at night. The smell of pine trees in the forest near my home. The way the sky turns orange and pink at sunset. The laughter of children playing in the streets." Vila listened, and something stirred inside her. She had never heard anyone talk like this. She had never heard anyone describe a place with so much love, so much longing. It made her chest feel tight. It made her want something she could not name. "Why do you miss those things?" she asked. "They are just sounds and smells. They have no practical value." Looked at her gently. "Because they remind me of being alive. They remind me of the people I love and the moments that made me who I am. Value is not always about practicality. Sometimes the most valuable things are the ones that make us feel connected to each other and to the world around us." Vila did not know how to respond. His words made no sense to her logic, but they made perfect sense to something deeper inside her. Something that was waking up more every day. "I should go," she said abruptly. "I have duties in the morning." She left quickly, almost running. She did not look back. That night she could not sleep. Words kept echoing in her mind. The sound of rain, the smell of pine trees, the laughter of children. She had never experienced any of those things. She had never wanted to. But now, suddenly, she wanted to know what they felt like. She wanted to understand why they mattered so much to him. She got out of bed and went to her computer terminal. She hesitated for a long moment, then typed in a search query, Emotional history. The results were restricted, classified, forbidden to access without special permission. She should have stopped there. She should have gone back to bed and forgotten the whole thing. But she could not. Something drove her forward, something stronger than protocol, stronger than fear. She used her security codes to bypass the restrictions. It was a violation of regulations. If anyone found out, she could be punished severely. But she did not care. She needed to know the truth. The files opened, and she began to read. What she found changed everything. 3,000 years ago, they had not been emotionless. They had been passionate and creative and full of life. They had loved deeply and felt deeply. They had art and music and poetry. They had families and friendships and bonds that lasted lifetimes. But they had also had wars, terrible wars fueled by hatred and jealousy and rage. Millions had died. Entire planets had been destroyed. They had nearly wiped themselves out. So the High Council had made a decision. They would remove emotions from their species. They would genetically modify every to suppress feelings from birth. They said it was for peace. They said it was for survival. They said emotions were a disease that needed to be cured. But as Vila read deeper, she found something else. Hidden in the oldest files, buried under layers of encryption, was a different story. The emotions had not been removed for peace. They had been removed for control. The High Council had feared the people. They had feared revolution, change, challenge to their power. Emotions made people unpredictable. Emotions made them question authority. Emotions made them fight for freedom. So the Council had taken them away, not to save to enslave them. Vila sat in the darkness, staring at the screen. Her whole life had been a lie. Everything she believed, everything she was taught, everything she thought she knew about herself and her people, all of it was built on deception. She thought about his warmth and kindness and joy. She thought about how he talked about earth, about rain and pine trees and laughter. She thought about how alive he seemed, how full of light. And she thought about herself, gray and cold and empty, efficient but lifeless, a perfect, exactly what the High Council wanted her to be. For the first time in her life, she felt something she could clearly identify. Anger. It burned in her chest like fire, hot and bright and terrifying. She had never felt anything so strong. She did not know what to do with it. She did not know if she should embrace it or push it away. But she knew one thing for certain. She was not going back to sleep tonight. And she was never going to see herself the same way again. The attack came without warning. It was passing through a sector near the edge of Alliance territory when the sensors detected hostile ships. They appeared from behind an asteroid field, 12 vessels, dark and fast, bearing the markings of the collective. There were raiders and pirates, a brutal species that survived by attacking weaker ships and stealing their resources. They had never dared to attack a flagship before. But today they did. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Commander Thorne's voice came over the speakers, calm and cold as always. All crew to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Vila ran to the tactical command center, her training taking over. Her fingers flew across the control panels, analyzing enemy positions, coordinating defensive systems, directing weapons fire. She was good at this. Battle was simple. Battle had rules and protocols. In battle, she did not have to think about feelings or forbidden files or the human who had turned her world upside down. The weapons roared to life. Energy beams sliced through space, striking enemy ships. Shields flared and flickered. Explosions lit up the darkness. The crew worked with perfect efficiency, each person performing their duty without hesitation or fear. But they were desperate and vicious. They knew they could not win a straight fight against a flagship, so they used a different tactic. 3 of their ships broke away from the main battle and headed straight for the at full speed. They were not trying to shoot. They were trying to ram. Vila saw it happening. She calculated the trajectory in an instant. The enemy ships were going to hit the cargo bay in Section 15. The impact would breach the hull and expose that entire section to the vacuum of space. And then she realized something that made her blood run cold. Worked in Section 15. She should have stayed at her post. Protocol demanded that she continue coordinating the battle. Other crew members were in danger too. She could not prioritize one life over others. That was not the way. But she did not think, she did not calculate, she simply acted. She ran. She ran through the corridors faster than she had ever moved in her life. Alarms blared around her. The ship shook with impacts. She passed other crew members rushing to their stations, but she did not stop. She could not stop. Something inside her, something primal and overwhelming, drove her forward. Section 15 was already damaged when she arrived. Sparks flew from broken panels. Smoke filled the air. The ceiling had partially collapsed, blocking the main corridor. And somewhere beyond that wall of debris, she could hear someone calling for help. Vila tore at the debris with her bare hands. The metal was sharp and it cut her skin. She did not feel the pain. She pulled away pipes and broken panels, creating a gap just large enough to squeeze through. On the other side, she found him, was trapped under a fallen beam. His leg was pinned and he could not move. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead, but he was alive. He was alive. "Vila," he said, his eyes widening with shock. "What are you doing here? You should be at your station." "Be quiet," she said. "I am getting you out." She grabbed the beam and pulled. It was heavy, too heavy for one person, but she did not stop. She pulled until her muscles screamed, until her hands bled, until she thought her body would break. And slowly, impossibly, the beam moved. Pulled his leg free and crawled out of the gap. Vila grabbed his arm and helped him to his feet. He could barely walk, so she put his arm over her shoulder and half carried him toward the exit. Behind them, the ship groaned and shuddered. A warning siren wailed, the hull breach alarm. The enemy ship had hit and the section was about to decompress. Vila ran. She dragged through the corridors, racing against time. The emergency bulkheads were closing, sealing off the damaged sections. If they did not get through before the doors shut, they would be trapped. They would die. 20 meters, 10 meters, 5 meters. The bulkhead began to close. Vila threw herself forward, pulling with her. They tumbled through the gap just as the door slammed shut behind them. A moment later, they heard the roar of air being sucked into space from the other side. They lay on the floor, gasping for breath, looked at her with wonder in his eyes. "You saved my life," he said. Vila did not answer. She could not speak. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might explode. Her whole body was shaking. She had never felt so alive, so terrified, so overwhelmed. The battle ended an hour later. The retreated, leaving behind the wreckage of their ships. That was damaged but intact. They had won. But for Vila, the real battle was just beginning. Commander Thorne summoned her to his office. His silver eyes were cold and hard as he looked at her across the desk. "You abandoned your post during a combat situation," he said. "You violated every protocol. You put the entire ship at risk. Explain yourself." Vila stood at attention, her hands behind her back. She searched for words, for some logical explanation that would satisfy him, but there was none. I cannot explain," she said finally. "I saw that Section 15 was in danger. I knew the human was there, and I had to save him." "Had to," Thorne repeated. "There is no had to in protocol. There is only duty, only logic. You made an emotional decision. You acted on feelings." The word hung in the air like a curse. "You are relieved of duty," Thorne said. "You will be confined to your quarters pending a full psychological evaluation. If you are found to be compromised, further action will be taken." Vila nodded. She had expected this. She accepted it. As she walked to her quarters, escorted by 2 guards, she felt strangely calm. She should have been afraid. She should have been ashamed. But she was not. She had saved life. Whatever happened next, that was worth it. Later that night, there was a knock at her door. She opened it and found standing there, leaning on a crutch. His leg was bandaged and his face was bruised, but his eyes were warm. "How did you get past the guards?" she asked. "I told them I needed to thank the officer who saved my life," he said. "They let me in, even understand gratitude, I think." She stepped aside and he limped into her quarters. They stood in silence for a long moment. "You did not have to do that," said finally. "You risked everything, your career, your position, maybe your life. Why?" Vila looked at him. She thought about all the reasons she could give: duty, alliance obligations, tactical necessity. But none of them were true. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. "I do not know," she whispered. "I just knew I could not let you die. I could not live with that." Reached out and took her hand. His skin was warm against hers. It was the first time anyone had touched her like that, gently, kindly, without clinical purpose. "Thank you," he said. And Vila felt tears forming in her eyes. Real tears for the first time in her entire life. She did not understand them. She did not know why they came. But she did not wipe them away. Vila spent 3 days alone in her quarters. She was not allowed to leave. Guards stood outside her door at all times. Food was brought to her by maintenance drones. No one spoke to her. No one visited. She was completely isolated. In that silence, she had nothing to do but think. She thought about her life before arrived. 40 years of perfect service. 40 years of following protocols, completing missions, doing exactly what the High Council expected. She had believed she was happy, or at least content. But now she realized the truth. She had not been happy. She had been numb. She had been a machine pretending to be alive. She thought about the forbidden files she had read. The truth about her people, about the emotions that had been stolen from them, about the lies they had been told for 3,000 years. She thought about all the who lived their lives in gray emptiness, never knowing what they were missing, never understanding that they had been robbed of their own souls. And she thought about his smile, his warmth, the way he looked at her with kindness instead of cold evaluation, the way he touched her hand, so gentle, so human. No one had ever touched her like that. No one had ever made her feel like she mattered as a person, not just as an officer. On the 4th day, the door opened and Commander Thorne walked in. He was not alone. 2 medical officers followed him, carrying a small metal case. "The psychological evaluation is complete," Thorne said. His voice was flat, emotionless as always. "The results confirm what we suspected. You have developed an emotional attachment to the human. Your neural pathways are showing patterns we have not seen in thousands of years. You are becoming unstable." Vila stood still. She did not argue. She knew it was true. "The High Council has reviewed your case," Thorne continued. "They have decided to offer you a choice. You may undergo neural. The procedure will correct your brain chemistry and remove these feelings. You will return to normal. You will be restored to duty. Everything will be as it was before." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Or," he said, "you will be discharged from service and sent to a rehabilitation facility. You will never return to this ship or any other vessel. You will live out your days under medical supervision, treated as a patient with a rare and dangerous condition." The medical officers opened the case, revealing a small device that looked like a collar. It was silver and smooth, with blinking lights along the edge. The neural. "The choice is yours," Thorne said, "but I strongly recommend. You were an excellent officer, Vila. You could be excellent again. All you have to do is let go of these feelings and return to who you truly are." Who you truly are. The words echoed in Vila's mind. For 40 years she had believed she knew who she truly was, an officer, logical, efficient, empty. But now she knew that was not the truth. That was not who she truly was. That was who the High Council had made her. "May I have time to think?" she asked. Thorn nodded. "You have until tomorrow morning. The medical team will return then for your answer." They left, the door closed. Vila was alone again. She sat on her bed and stared at the wall. Her mind was spinning. Part of her wanted to accept it would be so easy. All the confusion, all the pain, all the terrifying new feelings, they would simply disappear. She would go back to being the person she used to be. She would be safe. But another part of her, a part that was growing stronger every day, screamed in protest. To accept would be to kill the person she was becoming. It would be to destroy the part of herself that could feel joy, love, wonder. It would be to surrender to the same lies that had enslaved her people for 3,000 years. She did not know what to do. She had never been so afraid in her life. A soft knock came at the door. It was not the guards. It was too gentle, too hesitant. "Who is there?" she called. "It is," came the reply. "Please let me in." She went to the door and pressed the release. It opened to reveal standing in the corridor. The guards watched him suspiciously, but they did not stop him. "How did you know?" she asked. "I heard about the evaluation," he said quietly. "I know what they want to do to you. I had to come." She let him in, and the door closed behind them. They stood facing each other in the dim light of her quarters. "You know about she asked. "Yes, one of the technicians told me." His face was serious, his eyes full of concern. "Vila, you cannot let them do this to you." "Why not?" she said. "It would solve everything. I would stop feeling. I would stop being confused. I would go back to being a good." "But you would stop being you," said. "The person standing in front of me, the person who saved my life, the person who is brave enough to feel even when it terrifies her, that person would be gone forever." Vila looked away. "Maybe that would be better. Feelings are painful, confusing. I do not know how to handle them. I do not know who I am anymore." Stepped closer. He took her hands in his just like he had done before. His touch was warm and gentle. "Feelings are painful sometimes," he said. "That is true, but they are also beautiful. They are what make life worth living. Joy, love, wonder, connection, these are not weaknesses. They are the greatest strengths in the universe." "Your people think emotions make you weak," Vila said. "That is what everyone says about humans." "They are wrong," said simply. "Emotions do not make us weak. They make us alive. They make us care about something bigger than ourselves. They make us fight for the things we love even when the odds are impossible." He paused. "Emotions are the reason I am still here. They are the reason you saved me. They are the reason we are standing together right now." Vila felt tears forming again. She tried to hold them back, but she could not. They spilled down her cheeks, hot and wet. "I am so scared," she whispered. "I have never been this scared of anything." "I know," said, "and that is okay. Fear is not the enemy. Fear just means you have something worth protecting." He squeezed her hands. "You have a choice to make, and whatever you decide I will respect it, but I want you to know something." "What?" He looked into her eyes. "You are the bravest person I have ever met, not because you do not feel fear, but because you feel it and you keep moving forward anyway. That is what courage is. That is what makes you extraordinary." Vila stood there, trembling, crying, feeling more than she had ever felt in her entire life. And in that moment she made her decision. She was not going to let them take this away from her. She was not going to go back to being empty. She was going to fight for her right to feel, no matter what it cost her. "I am not going to accept she said. Smiled, it was a beautiful smile, full of warmth and pride. "Then we need to get you off this ship," he said. They left in the dead of night. Had spent the whole day preparing. He studied the patrol schedules, memorized the guard rotations, mapped out the quietest routes through the ship. He was only an engineer, not a spy, but he was smart and careful and determined. And he had one advantage that no expected. He was willing to break the rules. At 300 hours, when most of the crew was in their sleep cycle, came to Vila's quarters. He had bribed a maintenance drone to unlock her door, a simple trick that No would think to try. The guards had been called away by a false alarm in Section 9. Another trick had arranged. "We have 12 minutes," he said quietly. "Follow me." They moved through the corridors like shadows. Vila's heart pounded so hard she was afraid someone would hear it. She had never done anything like this before. She had never broken a rule in her life. But now she was running through her own ship like a criminal, and she was not sorry. The shuttle bay was on the lowest deck, led her through service tunnels and maintenance corridors, avoiding the main hallways where they might be seen. Twice they had to stop and hide as crew members passed by. But luck was on their side, and they reached the shuttle bay without being caught. The bay was dark and quiet. A dozen small shuttles sat in their docking clamps, ready for launch. Headed for the one at the far end, an older model, less advanced than the others but sturdy and reliable. "I chose this one because it has a longer range," he explained as they climbed aboard. "And because it has a small cargo hold where we can hide if anyone scans us." Vila strapped herself into the co-pilot seat while started the launch sequence. His hands moved quickly over the controls. The shuttle's engines hummed to life. "Will they let us leave?" Vila asked. "No," said, "but by the time they realize what is happening, we will be too far away to catch." He was wrong. The shuttle had barely cleared the bay when alarms began to blare. Emergency lights flooded the ship. Commander Thorne's voice crackled over the communication system. "Attention all crew. Officer Vila and the human liaison have stolen a shuttle. They are attempting to escape. All vessels pursue and intercept. Do not let them leave the sector. Push the engines to maximum power." The shuttle shot forward into the darkness of space. Behind them, Vila could see the turning, its massive form silhouetted against the stars. 3 smaller pursuit ships launched from its bays, streaking after them. "They are faster than us," Vila said. Her tactical training kicked in automatically. "They will catch us in 4 minutes." "I know," said. His face was tense, but his voice was calm. "We need to lose them in the nebula." Ahead of them, a vast cloud of purple and red gas filled the space between stars. The nebula, a region of dense cosmic dust that played havoc with sensors and navigation. Ships rarely entered it because the interference made their systems unreliable, but that same interference might hide them from pursuit. "It is dangerous," Vila said. "The dust can clog the engines. The radiation can fry the electrical systems. Do we have another choice?" She looked at him. He looked at her. And in that moment, she understood something important. This was what it meant to trust someone. This was what it meant to put your life in another person's hands and believe they would not let you fall. "No," she said, "we do not have another choice." They plunged into the nebula. The world outside turned into a swirl of color and chaos. The shuttle shook as it passed through thick clouds of dust. Warning lights flickered across the control panel. The sensors went dark, blinded by interference. They were flying blind. Behind them, Vila could see the pursuit ships hesitating at the edge of the nebula. They circled like predators uncertain of their prey. Then one of them entered the cloud, followed by the others. "They are still following," she said. "I know." His hands were white-knuckled on the controls. "We need to lose them. Think, you know tactics. What would you do?" Vila's mind raced. In all her years of training, she had never faced a situation like this. All her strategies were based on logic and protocol, but logic and protocol would not save them now. The pursuit ships were following doctrine, tracking them by their engine signature, predicting their movements based on standard evasive patterns. But Vila was no longer following doctrine. She was no longer bound by protocol. She could do something No would expect. "Turn off the engines," she said. Stared at her. "What?" "Turn off the engines, all of them. Let the ship drift." If we do that, we will lose all power. Life support, navigation, everything. I know, she met his eyes. But it is the only way. They are tracking our engine signature. If we go dark, they will lose us in the interference. They will never expect and to risk that. It is too desperate, too emotional. Was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, a small, fierce smile. You are right, he said. They will never expect it. He reached for the controls and shut down the engines. The shuttle went dark. The hum of power faded to silence. They drifted through the nebula like a dead thing, invisible against the swirling clouds of dust and gas. Vila held her breath. She could hear the pursuit ships passing nearby, their engines roaring. They swept through the nebula, searching, scanning, finding nothing. For what felt like an eternity, she waited, terrified that they would be discovered. Then slowly, the sounds of the pursuit ships faded. They were moving away, heading deeper into the nebula, searching in the wrong direction. Waited until they were gone. Then he restarted the engines and set a new course, out of the nebula, away from space, toward the distant stars of human territory. When they finally emerged from the nebula, Vila felt something break inside her. All the fear, all the tension, all the emotions she had been holding back, they came flooding out at once. She laughed. She cried. She shouted. She felt everything all at once, and it was overwhelming and terrifying and wonderful. Held her while she fell apart. He did not try to stop her. He did not try to calm her down or tell her to control herself. He just wrapped his arms around her and let her feel everything she needed to feel. It is okay, he said softly. Let it out. You have been holding this in for 40 years. It is okay to let go. So she did. She cried until there were no more tears. She laughed until her sides hurt. She raged against the lies she had been told and the life she had lost and the people who had stolen her emotions without her consent. And through it all stayed with her. He held her hand. He stroked her hair. He told her she was brave and strong and beautiful. When it was finally over, when she was empty and exhausted and strangely peaceful, she looked at him with clear eyes. Thank you, she said. For what? For not trying to fix me, for just being here. Smiled, that is what friends do. Friends, it was such a simple word, but to Vila it meant everything. They flew on through the darkness, two small figures in a tiny ship heading toward an uncertain future. Behind them, they would be searching. The High Council would be furious. They would be branded as traitors, criminals, enemies of the state. But Vila did not care. For the first time in her life, she was free. And she was not alone. 6 months had passed since the escape. Vila stood on the porch of a small wooden house, watching the sun set over the mountains. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink and gold, colors so beautiful they made her chest ache. She had seen 1,000 sunsets since coming to Earth, and every single one amazed her. She did not think she would ever get tired of them. The house was on the edge of a small town called Haven, on a continent the humans called North America. It was a quiet place, far from the busy cities and the politics of the human alliance. The people here were simple farmers and craftsmen who did not care about galactic treaties or alien refugees. They had accepted Vila without question, welcoming her into their community as if she had always belonged. It had not been easy at first. The emotions that had awakened inside her were still raw and overwhelming. Some days she felt joy so intense that she could not stop smiling. Other days she felt sadness so deep that she could not get out of bed. She did not know how to handle these feelings. She did not know how to live with them. But was always there. He helped her through the bad days and celebrated with her on the good ones. He taught her how to name her emotions, how to understand them, how to let them flow through her without being destroyed by them. He was patient and kind and never made her feel broken or wrong. He taught her other things too, simple human pleasures she had never experienced. The taste of fresh bread from the bakery down the street, the sound of music playing on an old radio, the feeling of cool grass beneath her bare feet, the warmth of a fire on a cold night. Each new experience was a gift, a reminder of all the things she had been missing her whole life. And slowly, day by day, Vila began to heal. She learned that emotions were not enemies to be feared. They were teachers, guides, messengers from deep inside her soul. Anger told her when something was wrong. Sadness told her when she needed comfort. Joy told her when she was on the right path. Fear told her when she needed to be careful. Every feeling had a purpose, a meaning, a message. She also learned that she was not alone in her awakening. News had reached them from space. Others were beginning to feel. It started as whispers, rumors, stories passed from ship to ship. An officer who laughed at a joke. A technician who cried at a sad story. A commander who refused to send his crew into a suicide mission because he could not bear to lose them. The High Council called it a disease, a contamination spreading from human contact. They ordered stricter isolation protocols, mandatory psychological screenings, increased use of neural. But it was too late. The awakening had begun, and it could not be stopped. Vila's story had spread across the fleet. She did not know how. Perhaps someone had leaked the records of her escape, or perhaps the crew of the had talked. But somehow her name had become a symbol, the officer who chose to feel, the traitor who chose to be free. Some hated her for it. They saw her as a threat to everything their society had built, a dangerous radical who would destroy their way of life. But others saw something different. They saw hope. They saw proof that another way was possible. They saw permission to question the lies they had been told. Vila did not think of herself as a hero. She had not set out to start a revolution. She had just wanted to be free. But she understood now that freedom was contagious. Once one person broke the chains, others would follow. One evening, as the sun was setting over the mountains, came out to join her on the porch. He carried 2 cups of tea, and he handed one to her before sitting down in the chair beside her. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything," she said. "Nothing, the past, the future, how strange life is." He smiled. "That is a lot of thinking." "I never used to think this way," she said. "I used to think in straight lines, mission objectives, tactical scenarios, protocol compliance. Now my thoughts go in circles and spirals and shapes I cannot even name." "That is called being human," said. "Well, metaphorically speaking." Vila looked at him. In the golden light of the sunset, he looked beautiful. She had learned that word, beautiful, and she used it often now. The sunset was beautiful. The mountains were beautiful. The way he smiled when he was happy, that was beautiful too. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Leaving everything behind to help me escape?" Shook his head. "Not for a single moment. I was just an engineer on a ship full of people who did not understand me. I had no family, no real friends, nothing tying me to my old life. But here, with you, I have found something worth living for." "What is that?" He reached over and took her hand. Connection, meaning, love. Love, the word still made her heart beat faster. She had learned what it meant, this strange and powerful emotion that humans talked about so much. She had felt it growing inside her for months, warm and steady and terrifying. "I love you," she said. The words came out before she could stop them. "I do not know if that is the right thing to say. I do not know if we're supposed to love, but I feel it. I feel it every day, and I wanted you to know." His eyes grew soft. He set down his tea and turned to face her fully. "I love you too," he said. "I have loved you since the moment you ran through a collapsing ship to save my life. I have loved you through every tear, every laugh, every moment of fear and wonder. I will love you for as long as I live." Vila felt tears forming again. She no longer tried to stop them. Tears were not weakness. They were proof of feeling, proof of being alive. "My people told me emotions were poison," she said. "They told me that feelings would destroy me. They told me that humans were primitive and dangerous." "And now?" asked. She looked at him. "This fragile, short-lived, impossibly brave human who had changed her entire world. "Now I know the truth," she said. "I battled against my emotions my entire life. I was taught to suppress them, to fear them, to see them as enemies. But you showed me something different. You showed me that feelings are not weakness. They are strength. They are the reason we fight, the reason we hope, the reason we love." She squeezed his hand. "You were the only one who understood," she said. "The only one who saw me as a person, not a machine. The only one who believed I could be more than what my people made me. You taught me what it truly means to be alive." Leaned forward and kissed her gently. It was soft and warm and full of all the things that words could not express. When they pulled apart, the sun had disappeared below the mountains. The sky was deep purple now, dotted with the first stars of evening. Vila looked up at them, the same stars she had watched from the observation deck of the same stars that had seemed so cold and distant. But they did not seem distant anymore. They seemed like old friends, silent witnesses to her journey from emptiness to wholeness. "What happens now?" asked. Vila smiled. It was a real smile, full of warmth and hope and love. "Now we live," she said. "We feel, we love, we help others find their way to freedom, and we never ever forget how precious this is." She took his hand, and together they watched the stars come out, one by one, until the sky was filled with light. The universe was vast and cold and full of danger. But here, on this small planet, in this quiet town, two people sat together and felt everything there was to feel. And that was enough. That was everything.